Hello, I'm glad you're back. Today we're reading from Hot Flash Divas. I'm author Shirley Garrett, and we're reading chapter 49, Nathan Meets the Divas. This is a long chapter. Nathan phoned and apologized for his abrupt departure on our last date, and I apologized for analyzing him. To make it up to him, I asked him to accompany me to a barbecue that Letitia's parents were having on Saturday. In truth, I wanted to see if the Divas picked up on any unsavory vibes. We drove over the Tennessee River in Decatur with the top down on his ruby red Sebring convertible. I piled my hair under a crimson tie cap and donned sunglasses to protect my eyes from the sun and the wind. Which diva is Letitia? Nathan braked for a red light. I turned toward him and smiled. He too wore a roll tie cap to protect his bald pate, not from the wind, but the sun. She's the loan officer. Her dad, Willie, is a genius with a grill. They have ribs, and I can't wait. Remind me of the other ladies' names? I pointed. Turn right here. Gina's an attorney, and her date is some guy from Sicily who's visiting her family. I suspect her mom's trying to set her up with a nice Italian guy. I'm not sure how much English he speaks. Nathan turned on his signal and turned as I directed. Is she divorced? Crepe myrtles were ablaze with vibrant pinks, reds, and fuchsias, creating a show of color. Begonias, a staple of the southern landscape, were bunched in large mounds of color in the flower beds of many of the houses we passed. In all the spectacle, I hesitated before answering. Nope, never married, had no kids. Isn't that almost a sacrilege in an Italian Catholic family? While waiting at a red light, Nathan glanced my way and pulled off his cap. He ran his free hand over his head while after snugging the cap back down. She considers herself to be the black sheep. To make it worse, she's a divorce attorney. Nathan chuckled as he braked at a stop sign. She really is a rogue black sheep. White crepe myrtle blossoms drifted like snow on the light breeze, dancing in whirlwinds on the pavement. Had the urge to open the door, run into the street, and twirl among the blossoms with my arms held wide. I cleared my throat before I continued. Kat's a nurse, and she's invited an EMT she met at work. Who's Letitia bringing? After braking at another stop sign, Nathan reached over and moved a strand of hair out of my face. I adjusted my sunglasses. Believe it or not, a blind date that her dad, Willie, set up. This sounds like it could be interesting. I laughed. It could be a hoot or a complete disaster. Turning to that drive with the orange and blue balloons on the mailbox. Care to guess what college team Willie supports? The 1950s house was covered with Miami stone on the front and green siding down the sides and back. A dark green metal awning with a white stripe along the edge shaded the porch and matched the paint on the concrete porch and stairs. White wrought iron railings surrounded the porch and extended down both sides of the stairs like welcoming arms. A variety of annuals bloomed in the beds. Nathan parked in the drive and opened the car door for me before reaching in the back to retrieve the cooler. I shaded my eyes with my hand. They'll be in the backyard, so we'll go on back. I could hear Dante and Jack yelling to each other. We entered through the wooden gate on the left side of the house. The boys were tossing a football across the long yard, which offered plenty of room to cavort. The boy holding the football is Dante. He's Letitia's son. The other kid is Jack, and he's Kat's. Nathan nodded as he craned his neck to take in the situation. I watched for his response. In a way, this event was a test. I never mentioned the ethnicity of the divas and wanted to see how he responded. If he couldn't accept them, he was toast. Willie! Flinging my arms wide, I walked over to the towering man who wore a King of the Grill apron and gave him a big hug. This is my friend, Nathan. They shook hands as they eyed each other's ball caps. Should have known she'd bring another Alabama fan. Girl, when you gonna wise up and start dating an Auburn man? I giggled. This banter was a running commentary. Todd was an Alabama fan and Willie never approved. Don't you be giving me a hard time now. Just remember who won the national championship. Willie crossed his arms and frowned. Do you have to keep reminding me? The important thing is whether you're grilling enough ribs. I lifted the lid and peeked into the grill. Heat and a luscious aroma blasted me, and it made me drool like a teething infant. Phoenix, I cooked enough ribs to feed the Alabama and Auburn football teams. Did you bring enough potato salad? He cocked a brow. She made a huge bowl, and it looks delicious. Nathan held up the cooler, and it weighs a ton. Willie grinned. You ever had her potato salad? Nathan shifted cooler from one hand to the other. No. She brought some to an event once, but it was all gone by the time I got there. Well, you're in for a treat. Wait until you taste my wife's turnip greens, fresh from the garden. Reaching for the cooler, I said, I'll leave you guys to the grilling. I'm taking this potato salad inside. We don't need any food poisoning because it got hot. Once I was in the back door, I set the cooler on the breakfast table and walked into the long galley-style commercial kitchen. There's my girl! Mama Snide pulled me into her arms and gave me her signature sway to the left and right while she squeezed the air from my lungs. She hugged from the depth of her soul and always smelled of baby powder and whatever she was cooking. Mama Snide, a genius soul food cook, ran a catering company from her kitchen. I inhaled to replace my depleted oxygen and asked, Do you have room for the potato salad in your fridge? She flitted one hand to dismiss my question. There's always room in my fridge. Indeed, there was an open space in her commercial walk-in fridge. I lifted the heavy bowl and slid it onto a shelf. Shivering, I left and closed the door. I replaced the lid on the cooler and turned as Letitia grabbed me by the arm and pulled me into the living room out of the hearing range of her mother. She leaned close and whispered, You've got to help me if this guy turns out to be a dud. What am I supposed to do? Kidnap you? Oh, Lordy, this will ruin the whole event for me if he's a freak. Letitia grabbed me by the arm again, pulled me into a bedroom, and closed the door. She yanked on the chain until the ceiling fan produced hurricane-force winds and pulled her shirt off over her head. She stood, arms out, her brassiere cradling melon-sized breasts that would drive most men wild. I'm a D-cup, but Letitia made me look prepubescent by comparison. Hot flash? She nodded. I'm so nervous. I had to pee 3 times in the last hour. Too much information, I said. Just be yourself and an excellent hostess. Everything will work out in the end. Maybe. What if I don't want to go out with him? What do I do then? I shook my head. Tell him he's a great guy, but he's not your type. Suggest that y'all can be friends. Letitia pulled on her shirt. What if I don't want to be friends? I sighed. How old are you? This isn't high school, you know. The situation is different. Daddy set it up, and I don't want to hurt his feelings. I patted her arm. Willie only wants you to be happy. He'll understand if love sparks don't generate between the two of you. We emerged from the bedroom with Letitia fully dressed and left the house to enter the shaded backyard. Willie declared in a booming voice, "Here she is now!" Letitia froze in place at the top of the stairs. I peeked around her to see what was happening. Everyone standing under the blooming mimosa tree turned to look at us. I took the opportunity to survey the situation. Closest to the steps stood petite cat with her exotic Asian looks, and her guy, an EMT who was tall, well-built, with a head full of surfer boy blonde hair. What a dichotomy, I thought. Gina's date was 4 inches taller than her and handsome in a dark Italian way. I looked past Nathan and spotted Letitia's date standing next to her daddy. He looked like a blackjack sprat. Even dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, he looked like a bow-tie intellectual. I whispered, "At least he's not a gangster wannabe wearing 10 pounds of gold with a diamond in his tooth and a rap sheet a mile long. You know Daddy wouldn't set me up with anyone like that." Willie presented Letitia with an upward sweep of his large hand. "Jerome, I want you to meet my little princess. Letitia, this is Jerome, the computer genius that saved your mama's system when it got that nasty virus." I bit my lip and slid a sideways glance at Letitia. She gripped my arm and yanked me beside her. I wiggled free of her grip and propelled her forward to meet her prince. I saw her shoulders straighten, which caused her bosom to rise to its full glory. Jerome's gaze locked on target. His eyes glazed over and a goofy smile spread across his face. She descended the stairs like a queen at a formal ball, and I followed in her wake. When she reached Jerome, she extended her hand. Jerome took it and his grin widened. They stood there for a while, eyeing each other. The silence stretched like high-priced elastic. "Hi!" I stepped forward to shake his hand. "I'm Phoenix, and this is my date, Nathan." The awkward moment passed, and there was a flurry of introduction. Gina's escort was Antonio, but he preferred Tony, and Kat's was Derek. Everyone grabbed a beer, wine, or soda and socialized until Willie declared the ribs to be perfect. The men gathered around the 3 picnic tables, which Mama Snide covered with red check tablecloths. They lifted them and placed them end to end. Willie plopped a humongous platter of ribs on the center table and covered them with aluminum foil. I elbowed Nathan and whispered, "Save me a seat near the ribs." I followed the other divas into the kitchen where Mama Snide deposited large containers of potato salad, coleslaw, baked beans, corn on the cob, and turnip greens into our waiting hands. We transported the goodies to the tables. Mama Snide was the last to come with a platter of sliced ripe tomatoes. Willie rushed to her side. "Let me take that heavy plate, honey bun." The one thing I've always loved most about the Snides is the way they express their love for each other. I loaded my plate with ribs and a dab of this and that. I took one bite of the ribs and nearly swooned. "Oh my, Willie, these are too good. If you give up the mechanic business, you should open a barbecue restaurant." I licked the sauce from my finger. The table became quiet as each of us dug into our mounds of food. Everyone came up from air on occasion to compliment one dish or another. I weigh once a week, but it wasn't going to be tomorrow. Mama Snide grinned and winked. "I hope y'all saved room for dessert." Everyone groaned and rubbed their bellies. Jerome sat straight and smiled. "What's for dessert?" With a twinkle in her eye, Mama Snide said, "Pecan pie, chocolate cake, and homemade buttermilk and pineapple ice cream." I could tell she approved of Jerome by the way she smiled at him. I've died and gone to culinary heaven, I moaned. My 3 favorite desserts. I was definitely not waiting tomorrow. You men play with these young'uns, and us ladies will put the food away. Mama Sny gave her husband a playful wink. Willie, will you start the ice cream for me? I sure will, honey bun. As the divas gathered the platters and bowls of food, Dante and Jack grabbed a disposable plate and dumped them in the garbage can. After I had placed my empty potato salad bowl on the counter, I walked back out to gather the flatware. Nathan, Tony, and Derek were tossing the football with the boys and throwing Alabama and Auburn taunts at each other. Jerome helped Willie start the ice cream freezer. When I walked back inside, Mama Sny glanced over at me. Phoenix, will you put those utensils in that small side of the sink that's full of hot soapy water? They need to soak. Like a pro, Gina slapped the plastic wrap over the leftovers. Letitia arranged them inside the fridge. Kat rinsed items and placed them into a strainer until Mama Sny could load them into one of her 2 dishwashers. I swooshed the silverware to loosen the debris. Within 15 minutes, we had the dishwashers running and the kitchen ready for a health department inspection. Delighted to have that task behind us, we sauntered outside and flopped our backsides into lawn chairs. Sheltered from the sun by a giant oak and an understory dogwood, we sipped strong iced tea, sweet enough to make our teeth ache, and watched the men play touch football. The guys were unaware that we existed at that moment, so we were free to have a chat. We sat in a conversational circle, ready to gossip. Mama Sny took a deep gulp of tea and held the sweating glass against the side of her face. Letitia, what do you think of Jerome? Letitia craned to look around me just as Jerome got hit square in the chest with the football and fumbled it. She shook her head. He doesn't seem very athletic. True, said Kat, but he has sexy brains. Did you hear him talking earlier? Letitia crossed her arms. Her lower lip began to pooch forward into a pout. It's not his brains I want to see naked. Letitia! Mama Sny tried to look stern, but she giggled instead. We all laughed. I was feeling drowsy from the humidity and too much food. The heady smell of honeysuckle from the neighbor's yard was intoxicating. Hey, in my opinion, his computer skills more than make up for his scrawny biceps. Gina sipped her tea as she watched the guys. Leaning over, Letitia gave him another gander. Maybe. What's the story on Tony? I asked Gina. He's quite attractive and speaks excellent English. It's a conspiracy between our mothers. He just finished his degree in microbiology. His mother's worried he wouldn't marry and have bambinos to pass on the family name. Grandchildren are important, said Mama Sny. Gina leaned forward and swept a glance around to make sure none of the guys were within hearing range. What his mother doesn't know is there's a real reason for her to be concerned. Why is that? Does he have a medical condition? He looks pretty healthy to me, said Kat. He's gay. Gina sat back and watched our faces. All 5 of our heads turned like a synchronized robot to stare at Tony. He leaped into air, caught a pass, and sprinted like a gazelle for a touchdown. Wiping the sweat from his brow with his forearm, he yanked his shirt over his head, exposing well-developed pecs and 6-pack abs. There was a collective sigh from the divas. It's just not fair, I said, shaking my head. Total waste, said Letitia. Mama Sny looked sad. I'll pray for his mama. Unless he adopts, there'll be no grandchildren. Tell us about Nathan. Gina lowered her sunglasses and looked at me with one of her tell-all looks. I was surprised to hear you were bringing him. I thought y'all stopped dating when he got mad, took his bread, and went home. It's like Kat said, the man has sexy brains. He's a considerate person from what I've seen, except there's something underlying. I waved my hand to shoo away a fly. The little varmint flew away and came back to dive bomb me. What does that mean? Mama Snide was fanning herself with the cardboard fan attached to an oversized popsicle stick. The fan advertised a funeral home. He seems angry or irritated at times, and he gets this sneer on his face when someone does something that he doesn't think was intelligent, I said. To me, it feels like he thinks he's superior. Kat tucked her hair behind one ear. Has he done it to you? Now the fly buzzed around her. No, but if he does it to other people, he's capable of doing it to me. And then there's his head. What's wrong with his head? I don't see nothing wrong with his head. Mama Snide craned her neck to inspect Nathan. Underneath that cap, there's no hair. Maybe all those high-powered neurons burned it off. I picked up my chair and shifted it over a foot to get back in the shade of the dogwood tree. My movement attracted the fly. Phoenix has always had a thing for a thick head of hair. It cranks her Prius. Gina laughed at her joke. Great, my date is a toothpick. Phoenix's date is as bald as a bowling ball, and Gina's Italian stallion is gorgeous but gay, said Letitia. That leaves you, Kat. Tell us about your surfer boy. Derek's an EMT with the Huntsville Fire Department. I met him when I worked in the emergency room at the hospital. I hadn't seen him since I began working for Dr. Howard. Mama Snide dabbed her face with the tissue, shoved it into the pocket of her shirt, and started fanning again. 2 weeks ago, someone fainted at the dentist office in our building, said Kat. When I left for lunch, the ambulance crew was rolling this huge guy out of the building. Derek and I saw each other in the parking lot and talked for a few moments. He asked for my number. We've been talking some, so I decided to ask him to this feast so y'all can vet him. He's hot. Letitia rolled her eyes and fanned herself. Letitia! Girl, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Mama Snide gave her the look, the one I've seen freeze Willie in his tracks. It had the same effect on Letitia. Girls, you need to pick wisely when it comes to a mate. The wrong man can make your life a septic tank, but the right one can make it sweet as sorghum syrup. Mama Snide pointed her fan at Letitia. You need to look past a gentleman's physical appearance down deep to the good stuff. But Mama, Letitia whined, bottom lip protruding again, shouldn't there be at least some form of physical attraction? I don't want to marry a man that makes me want to gag. I didn't say he had to be ugly as Hades, but sexual chemistry can get you into big trouble, and it doesn't last. Better to look for a good character man who cherishes you and who can make you laugh. Mama Snide nodded like she was adding a period to her advice. If you're lucky, you'll find one like your daddy who's good looking too. Letitia once told me that Mama Snide was pregnant when her boyfriend beat her so badly she spent 2 days in the hospital. It was touch and go, but Mama Snide didn't lose the pregnancy. She broke up with Letitia's biological father as soon as she got out of the hospital. Willie met Mama Snide when Letitia was a month old. Mama took her car to his shop to have the water pump replaced. He refused to charge her and asked her to a movie. 6 months later, they married. Willie hired an attorney to assist in terminating the birth father's paternal rights, and he adopted Letitia. Unaware that it had become quiet, we turned to see the flushed faces of our guys as they headed our way. Willie tossed the football in my direction, and I caught it. "What have you ladies been talking about over here while we've been running around impressing y'all with our might and muscle?" Mama Snide giggled like a teen. "Why, we've been talking about y'all, and that's all I have to say about the subject." "Woman, I'm hot and hungry, and the ice cream should be ready by now." Willie pulled his wife to her feet and kissed her. "Willie, behave yourself." She pushed him back with her palms. We pulled ourselves from our comfortable seats and followed Mama Snide into the house like imprinted ducklings to retrieve the desserts and think over her advice. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. It was a fun one. Please like, leave comments, subscribe. Please share it with other people to maybe give them a perky day. And stay safe and stay well. Bye.